You know, when we think about the days of segregation and the protests to fight racism, what comes to mind is perhaps events like lunch counter sit-ins or organized boycotts. Did you know Delaware beaches played a big role in integration? Protests that occurred on America's beaches were known as swim-ins or wade-ins.
And beaches also served as a haven of refuge for people of color during an incredibly stressful time. There's a whole lot of history where the sand meets the sea, and you can learn all about it in an upcoming series on WRDE that Chief Meteorologist Paul Williams is putting together, and he joins us in the studio now. Welcome, Paul.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for being
here. Hey, how you doing?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
So just tell us a little bit give us a little bit of a synopsis of this history. I know there's a ton to it, but what's kind of the...
Well, you know, a lot of people are familiar with sit-ins and a lot of the video that you see from the black and whites of the struggles for civil rights and all that. But one thing that was not known widely is the idea of a wade-in or a sit-in, which basically, it was actually initially, for example, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, they actually had one of those, which turned into a very bad mess. But it was the genesis that began to kick off the idea of people of color, particularly black or the Negro of that day, as they were referred to actually have access to a beach, you know, and like a lot of folks, a lot of the white counterparts were like, well, why do you need to have access to our beaches? Well, because there weren't any for us. You know, and just as much as you may have needed a vacation, dealing with Jim Crow and being a farmer, on top of that, yeah, vacation was needed even more so for the people of color that day.
So what inspired this project?
You know, it was an odd, eclectic event that put it all together. I was actually with my spouse, who I refer to as Brasco, and we were actually, yeah, Brasco, like Donnie Brasco. But anyway, but we were at this function in Lewis, and they did a presentation about beaches, black beaches, around the country.
Right.
And being a graduate of Jackson State, a historically black college university, you know, being, you know, African American, I thought I knew all I could know, especially going to a black college. Man, when I found out about this, it was new information to me. So I figured if it's new to me, it's got to be new to everybody, and it was a story that had to be told. So I broke out of my typical scientific mode as a meteorologist and went back to my original roots as a reporter, because that's actually what my first degree was in reporting. My second degree is actually in meteorology.
So what's it been like for you to dig deep and find out that history?
You know, it's been a labor of love and a labor of labor. It's a labor because, listen, this is a time where there weren't too many pieces of video. You know, very few people of color even had access to a beach, let alone a beach and a video camera of that day.
Right.
But we have some pictures. And this was part of what was called the Chitlin Circuit. Now, I know you're old enough to know because you're older than all of us added together here
Thank
today.
you very much for that.
But with the Chitlin Circuit, it involved a lot of historically known acts back in the day. Stevie Wonder performed here. Lionel Hampton performed here. And here's the part that's funny. The kicker to the whole story, and this is what I think makes it so special and a great story to tell, because it's a feel-good story. It was so great at Rosedale, which is the beach we're talking about, that the white folks were coming there anyway. So it was created for a place for people of color, but white people and black people were coming there together anyway. And it was one of very few places where you had an integrated beach. That's why I think it's riveting to understand the stress that folks needed to escape, because like I was talking to you earlier, Jimmy, it's not a matter of reparations and trying to make someone feel guilty and all that, because we'll never get to that point anyway. Economically, it's impossible. But the idea is, imagine being a taxpayer and your tax-paying money is paying for all these public beaches, but you can't go. And I think everybody can understand, if I'm spending money on something, I ought to have access to it. Well, see, that was the plight of African Americans, Negroes, people of color. You asking me to pay taxes to a country where I can't even go to the same places that you pay taxes to. That's un-American.
Now, part of what we were talking about earlier was the Nanticoke people as well.
That's hilarious, because it's the Nanticoke people who actually spearheaded this beach in Delaware. Right. See, here's the thing that was so funny. Well, ironic. The Nanticoke, who were Indians, native of the land, they were a very light-complected hue of people. You know, some of your relatives are darker than them, but they were considered colored as well.
Okay.
So they got lumped right in there with the Negroes, the Hispanics, the Indians, the Asians, all of it. So they were all in that same category. So if you had any kind of coloring in your skin, you were relegated to only certain beaches too.
And what are you most excited for people to learn through the series?
how it's towards the end of the series. I think it's funny and charming and endearing and a true epitome of the American spirit. When you see these same older people say that when they were told that they couldn't sit in the theater with everybody else, what did they do? And they said, well, we had a better view anyway. And what they did from up there will crack you up. They pulled some pranks from up there.
That's what we call a teaser. You're not going to tell us, are you?
I can't tell you everything.
Okay, so give us the wheres and the whens. Where and when can we find out what you're talking about?
Okay, so this is going to be playing for Thursday, this evening at 5:30,
Right.
and we're also going to have the second part on Friday. So it's a two-part series.
Okay.
We'll start with the genesis of Harmon Park, which actually became Rosedale, and Rosedale now has a historical marker in Sussex County, highlighting, even though the landscape has changed and everything has changed hands and all that, but they still have a historical marker letting folks know this is part of the rich history of Delaware, you know, and it's just remarkable because it's just a story, a slice of American pie that has an extra cherry or two on it so you can appreciate it.
And you can catch that tonight on WRDE.
WRDE, Coast TV, coverage you can count on.
You are the man. You are the man.
Chief Meteorologist Paul Williams, reporter now also.
Occasionally.
Thank you so much.